Hello, my name is Lizzie, and this is Lizzie's Literary Life, and today we are doing my wrap-up for Q1 of 2026. I know this is late. It's June. I'm aware. I know. This is my wrap-up for January, February, and March of this year. You should hopefully see a wrap-up for April, May, and June. Not too far from now, but we are gonna do this wrap-up now, even though it's late. This is my quarterly wrap-up format. I've only done a couple of them, where I go through my stats for that quarter. I talk about my best books from the quarter, my worst books from the quarter, any honorable mentions if I have them, and then any, a goals update. Forgot to say goals update, because I do have reading goals for this year, so I will update you on those, and also any non-bookish faves or, life updates, whatever. So that's our itinerary for today. And we're going to jump right in by talking about my slump. Before we get into stats, before I show you the stats, I want to talk about the fact that I have not been reading nearly as much as I feel like I typically do so far this year. Last year I ended up with, I don't remember exactly how many, but over 100 books. I've read over 100 books for the last 4 years now, 2021, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Because I think I first read over 100 books in 2021. And I don't know if I'll hit that this year. When we talk about my goals, I'm not on track to read 100 books. I am, as I'm back here on this channel and as Wonderthon's coming up and all of this stuff, I am very much recommitted to my reading life. And I've been reading a lot in the start of June. But I just don't know if 100 books is going to happen this year. I have been slumping. And by that, I really mean I have been focusing on other hobbies. And that's okay. And that's fine. And that's good. So keep that in mind when you see my numbers. And we're just going to get into it. So in the first 3 months of this year, I read 14 books, which is broken down as follows. In January, I finished 6 books. In February, I finished 3. And in March, I finished 5 for a total of 14. And that was 6,162 pages, 33.02 total audiobook hours, 64.93 actual real-time hours spent reading on all of my books. Pages per book actually is a pretty long average page count per book at 441.5 average pages per book. It took me an average of 21 days to finish each book. I think there's an outlier here. Let me actually look, because I feel like usually I'm 8 to 10 days to finish a book. And I feel like I had a big outlier. Yeah. So one of the books, Ruin, that I read in this quarter, I finished it in January, but I started it in August of 2025, and I took a big break from it. So that took me 165 days to read, which is very much pulling up the average for days to read. My average rating is a 3.57 for this quarter, which is okay. Could be worse, could be better. Pages per day, 69.46, and average time spent per day, 0.72 of an hour, which is, quick math, about 43 minutes. So I spent about 43 minutes reading per day on average, which actually is not as bad as I feel like maybe I felt like it was. But that's very inconsistent. You'll see with my pages per day graphs, which I'll show you in a second. I definitely don't read for 45 minutes every single day. It's some days I don't read at all, and some days I read for a lot more than that. So that's that. Genre-wise, we have a pretty big variety. We've got three fantasies. So that's my most common genre. And then 2 each of contemporary, mystery, thriller, nonfiction, and sci-fi. Then 1 historical, 1 memoir, and 1 romance. So pretty across the board. My highest rated genre is this quarter was historical fiction, but I only read one of them. And my lowest rated genre was mystery thriller. I read 2, and they were both bad, apparently. So that's where that's at. I read 11 adult general audience books and 3 young adult. And the average rating for the adult books is higher than for the young adult books. Format-wise, and we'll talk about this in my goals as well, I am reading majority with my eyeballs. If you don't remember, I did have a goal to be under 25% audiobooks this year, first let me explain this graph. We've got 42% physical, that is like physical paper book, and I had to read it, I read it entirely that way for it to be that format. 28% ebooks on my Kindle, 21% audiobooks, and one book, so 7% hybrid, which is like I read it partially in one format and partially in another. And for my 25% audiobook percentage goal, that includes hybrid books if they had an audiobook component to them. So I want less than 25% of my reading to happen at any part with an audiobook. And I've talked about that in other videos, why that's my goal. And if you did some quick math just now, we did not quite make it, but we were close. So as for where I acquired these books, I read 2 books that I owned this quarter. 2 I got on Spotify, and then 10 from my library. I do read a lot from my library, but I also really wanted to be focusing on my owned books this year, so that didn't happen quite as much as I would like. Ratings-wise, you'll see the bar graph on the screen, but my most common rating was a 4-star. The ratings graph looks pretty good. I did have 2 5-stars, which we will be talking about. 2 3-stars, 2 4.5s, 2 3.5s, 3 4-stars. But we also have a sprinkling of the lower ratings too, which, like I said, we'll talk about those books. The ones in the middle we won't necessarily talk about, but we'll talk about the high end and the low end. And then we have my daily pages graphs, and these are some of my favorite graphs to make. Because they show the breakdown of how much of each book did I read each day in terms of pages throughout the month. And I'm going to put January's on the screen right now. I had 1 or 2 really high page count reading days. So the scale of the graph goes up to 500 because I had a over 400 page reading day. And there aren't very many days in January where I didn't read, but there are a lot of days where I read less than 50 pages. Now I'm going to put up February. February is a little more sparse. Slump was hitting in February. There's a good number of days where I didn't read at all, and the scale only goes up to 300. And then March is coming on the screen right now, and if you recall, I started a project where I was going to read for an hour every day in March. And I actually I hung on to that a little bit longer than I kind of thought I did. But then the end of the month, I slumped hard and I read nothing. From the 21st to the 31st, I read no pages at all, nothing. So the scale here only goes up to 150. So the scales are different on these graphs, so they're hard to look at all next to each other. So those are all the stats. Next segment is our goals update. So I made a bingo board for a little 3x3 9-square bingo board for my 2026 reading goals. And I'm going to put on the screen the update as of March 31st. So just for the first 3 months of the year. Top left square is 12 TBR spin books. I don't know if I decided this in this quarter or after this quarter, but I did decide I am not going to do TBR spin, so that square is not getting checked off unless at the end of the year I decide to go back and read my stack, but I basically have decided I'm not participating in TBR spin. I did read the January and February books, but they took me until the end of March, and actually both those January and February books were... There's a moth trying to get in my apartment, but he's not going to get in. It's okay. Maybe it's not even a moth. Sorry, I'm distracted. Those 2 books are actually 2 of my best books of the quarter, so maybe I should really be continuing with my stack because I did try to pick books I would really love. And I tried to pick, and they're all by women of color. And I just really loved my stack. But with the slump and the way it's going, I don't think that's going to happen. So that square, 2 out of 12, probably not moving. I wanted to collect 350 stars, which I think is going to be tough to do if I don't read 100 books, because 100 books at a 3.5 average rating would be 350 stars. So if I'm going to read fewer than 100 books, I need to have a higher than 3.5 average rating, which we'll see. But I am at 50 stars at the end of March. My audiobook percentage, I wasn't including the hybrid book when I did this. I decided to include hybrids after I made this graphic. That's okay. As for my less than 25% audiobook goal, 21% of my books were entirely audio, so that does reach the goal, but it was like 28 or 29% if I include the hybrids. I also had a goal to average 100 pages daily, which I did not do. We already talked about that number. Owned TBR to 30 at the end of the year. We're at 53. Ongoing series to 20. We are at 29. 100 books total. I read 14. Sorry if you can hear the cat scratching in the background. 7 Friends Faves. This is a project I do throughout the year. I want to read all 7. I had read 1. Still have only read 1, I believe, at the end of March. And that book we are going to talk about in my best books, so that's exciting. And then I want to make 40 YouTube videos across the whole year. And as of the end of March, I made 9. So that is definitely good. Well, almost the progress I want to be making. It's a quarter of the year, so I should have done 10 to be still on track. But that's okay. We're at 9. And now, let's do worst books first, and then we'll do best books. I have 2 worst books of the quarter. These were my 2-star and my 1.5 star. I decided not to put my 2.5 star on this list. I can't even remember what it was, but I decided to just do 2 worst books because I felt like the 2.5 star, whatever it was, wasn't bad enough to be part of this list. My second worst book, I actually have physically, I'm not going to take it off the shelf, but it's right here. It's Where the Grass is Green and the Girls Are Pretty. Maybe I will take it off the shelf so I don't have to insert a picture. Sorry, I just hit myself in the face with that. Where the Grass is Green and the Girls Are Pretty by Lauren Weisberger. Now, this is the author of The Devil Wears Prada book, and I didn't like it. I gave it 2 stars. I got this at the Dollar Tree, and I reviewed it in my Dollar Tree book haul, which if you haven't seen, I will link for you right here. I think, maybe here, but I think here. I will link it for you if you haven't seen it. I had a couple bangers and a couple flops in that video, and this one was a flop. I read most of them in 2025, but this one I did read in 2026 in the beginning of January, and I didn't like it. You can, if you want to know why, watch that video, but I didn't like it. It was about rich people and rich people problems and college admissions scandals, and it just kind of gave me the ick. And then the worst book I read in this quarter of 2026 was 640 to Montreal by Eva Jerzisk, something like that. You'll see it on the screen. This was one of the Shelf This Book Club picks for this quarter. I think it was the February pick, maybe either January, February, or March. Obviously, it was one of those picks. The Shelf This Book Club is a book club that I do love, hosted by Bailey from Ms. Bailey Reading, and different people pick the books each month. And I did not like this one. It was a mystery thriller situation set on a train, which, I love a train. You would think I would like this concept. And I do like the concept. I just didn't like the way it was executed. The plotting was, so clunky and didn't make sense, and the characters were, the writing was so awkward. I just didn't like it. I'm pretty sure I reviewed it in a jokes vlog, so I will link said jokes vlog if I can figure out which one. But yeah, so did not like that one. And now let's talk about best books. We're just breezing through it. I have 3 best books of the quarter, 1 4.5 and 2 5 stars. So we're going to start with the 4.5. The book that I gave 4.5 stars this quarter was Horse Barbie by Gina Rosero. And that's the title makes sense when you read the book. It's a memoir about this woman, trans woman, who grew up in the Philippines in their trans beauty pageant scene. And it was just something that I knew nothing about and was so fascinated by when I started reading it. And I thought she wrote really well. Sometimes people write a memoir and you're like, your life is interesting, but it's not written well. And I thought this was written well, and her life was really fascinating. And it left me feeling very hopeful. And I do highly recommend it if you're into memoirs, or if you're not into memoirs, if you're just into like queer books and queer history, or both. I do recommend it. Yeah, it was about someone I hadn't heard of, but basically like part of the hook, she's in this trans pageant scene in the Philippines, and then she moves to the United States and becomes a model. But at that point, when she's modeling in the US, she's not out. No one knows she's trans. And so she's like, I don't remember the wording she uses, but she's like stealth, trying to be undercover as a cis woman, and she's constantly panicked about being found out. And she ends up coming out. This is, if you are, I don't know, if you really don't want spoilers for this woman's life, it's a memoir, it's real as it happened. You can skip ahead a couple, like 20 seconds, but she ends up coming out in a TED Talk. And it was just so powerful the way it was written, and her story was really awesome. And she ends up like, there's this picture that they include in the back of the book of her making Barack Obama laugh, and like it left me feeling hopeful, and it was a really fascinating story of queer history, recent queer history. I'm not calling her old, for clarity. And then my second best book I read in this quarter was We Could Be Rats by Emily Austen. I love Emily Austen. I really enjoyed, I gave 5 stars to Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead, and I really enjoyed Interesting Facts About Space, and I really liked this one. This is, We Could Be Rats is written as suicide notes. Sounds darker than the tone actually is. It's this woman who, I don't even know how to pitch it because there's so many like turns in what the narrative structure is. But it's about mental health and like family and small town, I think it's Canada, but like living in a conservative small town as a queer person and sort of coming of age in that way, and then the struggles that she goes through. But it's not a depressing book. It's actually very funny in tone and has an overall hopeful theme and message. And I just thought it was written, the structure of it was really strong, and I thought it was written really well. And I think Emily Austen just does great work. I'm really excited to read. I have it right here because I'm going to read it soon. Spoilers, I guess. I don't know. Is This a Cry for Help? That's her newest book since We Could Be Rats. And I'm really excited to read it. So that one is my second favorite book of the quarter. And my favorite book of the quarter was There Are Rivers in the Sky by Elif Shafak. This is a historical fiction. Well, it's multiple timelines, and some of them are, one of them is 2018, one of them is 2014, and then one of them is like Victorian England. And there might be another one. Oh, there's like some flashbacks to like ancient times as well. But the main storylines are 2014, 2018, and like 1856 or something. Which, if that's not Victorian, sorry. I'm going off the tip of my brain right now. But I loved this book. I thought every storyline, every thread was very engaging, and they wove together so brilliantly. The theme of this book is that, like on paper, on the back of the book, the theme is that water connects us all, and all of these stories of people are connected through the living memory of water. And I thought that was like It was like almost climate fiction-y if in like on like a meta level, but it was more just a story of these people and their lives and how they intertwined or didn't intertwine. And there's a lot about religion and religious persecution. And I thought it was brilliant and written beautifully. I love Elif Shafak. And yeah, that's the best book I read this quarter. Again, I think there's a review in a jokes episode. If I find it, I'll link it right now. But if you haven't seen my jokes round 1 from the start of this year, I just posted episode 3 last week, but the first 2 episodes came out earlier this year. I would recommend it because there's a lot of book reviews in there, including most, if not all of these, most of these books that I just talked about, as well as some fun TBR game situation if you haven't seen it. And our last segment of this video is non-bookish faves and life updates, and I have 2 things I want to talk about just really briefly. Number 1 is a TV show that I binged 10 seasons of. I finished it like just I'm caught up now, so it did go into quarter 2 as well, but that show is Summer House. So Summer House is a Bravo show about these rich New Yorkers who get a house in the Hamptons together in the summers, and they just have so much drama. It's just like the whole premise of the show is them getting drunk and having drama in the summer. Like that's just it. And I love it. I was locked in. They're a little bit, the people on it, I was about to say the contestants. It's not a competition show. But I've been watching Love Island the last couple days, and that is in my brain. But in comparison to Love Island, the people on it, the cast, are a little bit older, which is partially like makes them just that much like, I can't believe you're partying like this at 35. Like, what are you doing with your life? But it's also like, I like that sort of dimension to it, that it's not just 21 to 25-year-olds. I think it makes it a little more interesting in that way, that they like have more, they just have different life stuff going on for the most part alongside their partying. But I just feel like, having watched all 10 seasons in just a few months, I feel like I have seen these people through so much. I have seen engagements and weddings and divorces and babies. Like, there's so much going on. And I just have thoroughly enjoyed it. So that's what I've been doing instead of reading, is watching Summer House. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about just really briefly is that in this quarter, in March, I ran my first race. I ran a 10K. I did it with Ruby from Ruby Red, so I will put our starting line selfie here and our finish line selfie here, so you can see both. I had the best time. I started running in August of last year, of 2025, like from literally zero, could not run for 60 seconds straight at all. And I ran a 10K in March, and Ruby and I are tentatively planning to do another 10K in like September. So I've still been running a little bit here and there, and I've really enjoyed it. And it's really cool to like I'm proud of myself. It's cool to have done a thing that I didn't think I could do. And I did it. So, don't ask me what my time was. We had the best time. Simply the best. That's what my time was. It was the best. So we had a really good time. And yeah, that's an accomplishment I did this quarter. And that brings us to the end of this video. Like I said, hopefully you'll get a quarter 2 wrap up actually shortly after the quarter ends, maybe in about a month, beginning of July. And yeah, comment down below what was the best and worst book you read, either if you want to look at quarter 1 or just like recently, because I know it's not quarter 1 anymore. And comment that down below, or anything else you feel like it. Like this video, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next one, coming very soon. Bye.